But what you see is that was a very short respite. So the payments come out, people for between 1 and 3 weeks, you see that dip. Then the need shoots up again.
So in our recent survey, we found that 26% of people with a learning disability who responded reported not turning the lights on.
Broken all-time records this year.
That's only the half of it, my friends, but hello there and I do hope you're all well. Now, these statistics came from a working pensions committee meeting on the 7th of June of this year, where they were discussing the one-off cost of living support payments with...
I am Helen Barnard, I'm Director of Policy Research and Impact for the Trussell Trust.
Hello, I'm Maddy. I'm a Policy Specialist at Mencap.
Hello, I'm Morgan Wild, Policy at Citizens Advice.
I'm Sally West, I'm Policy Manager at Age UK.
Now, these statistics came from this question from Sir Stephen Timms, who's the chair of the Work and Pensions Committee.
And can I ask each of you how helpful you think that the cost of living support payments have been, and the arrangements for them have been, for the people that your organisation works with? Starting with Helen Barnard.
So I think if you look at last year, if you look at it overall, we saw the highest need ever for food banks. So we gave out 3 million food parcels. That was a 37% increase on the year before, more than 1 million for children for the first time. So if you look at it overall, even with every bit of support that was put in, we were still seeing a lot of people in really dire hardship. When you then look in our data at what happens every time each cost of living payment comes in, what you can see really clearly is they did definitely help. So when the first one came in July, we saw a dip of about 21% in terms of the need for our food banks compared to what we would have expected on the trend. Then the November one, we saw a dip of about 15% compared to what we would have expected in terms of the number of food parcels people needed. And in the most recent one that's just gone out in April, we saw a dip of 23%. So it clearly made a significant difference. But what you see is that was a very short respite. So the payments come out, people for between 1 and 3 weeks, you see that dip. Then the need shoots up again. And in each case, it went back up to, as it had been previously, a higher level of need than the year before. So in the most recent one that's gone out in April, we saw that dip. It didn't last very long. It lasted a shorter period of time than the others, but it shot up again. So in the first few weeks this year, we are already seeing levels of need higher than last year, which was itself significantly higher than the previous year. So I think that they clearly helped. They were delivered, they went in a targeted way to people who really needed them. They landed in people's bank accounts. You didn't have to apply. All that was good. But I think what it tells us is that one-off payments cannot respond to an ongoing level of income that's too low to cover the essentials. They can only ever give a short respite.
Thank you very much. Maddy Rose.
We've seen a similar picture. I think for many people with a learning disability, the cost of living payments just haven't reflected the challenges that they've experienced. And we know that 80% of disabled people have said that they just haven't been enough to cover their increased costs. As an organisation, we've seen a consistent degree of need for our helpline for people with a learning disability, their families and carers. Anecdotally, we know that the cost of living payments have often either been swallowed up by one large payment of a disproportionately high energy bill, because we know people with a learning disability often have higher energy needs than non-disabled people, or the cost of living payments have been defrayed across the wide number of extra costs that disabled people have. We've also found that even when people have been in receipt of the general cost of living payment, the disability cost of living payment, and their full benefit entitlement, they have still had to make profoundly difficult choices about whether they can afford their essentials. So in our recent survey, we found that 26% of people with a learning disability who responded reported not turning the lights on, 35% reported skipping meals, and 38% had not used their heating when they were cold. So I think that just indicates that hardship for people with a learning disability has persisted, even with the cost of living payments.
Thank you. Morgan Wild.
I'm going to add to the fairly bleak chorus from my colleagues here. So I mean, just to give you a sense of context, we have had probably the bleakest start to the year as a service that we've ever seen. So we give advice on, we give advice on anything, but we roughly give advice on around 300 different topics. And for over 70 of those issues, we've broken all-time records this year. And when put that in the context of us having been around over 80 years. We started at the outset of World War II. It's really something to be in the bleakest situation for people's living standards we've ever seen. The cost of living payments have helped. We've seen a similar temporary dip for people coming to us to access crisis support. That's typically referrals to food banks like the Trussell Trust network or charitable grants from local councils or other charities. You see that dip in the data for a month and then it goes away. You don't see that dip for our other key advice areas. So for example, if you come to us for a budgeting exercise in debt advice, we are increasingly seeing that our advisors, even when they're going through your income, through your expenditure with a fine-tooth comb, they can't make the numbers add up. Over 50% of people coming to us are now in that situation if we're giving them debt advice. It's really quite a bleak overall picture.
Thank you very much. Sally West.
Like others, I mean, the payments have made an important contribution, and I think particularly combined with the other support that the government has given with energy bills. But I think the evidence that we're getting, both from the polling that we do regularly and also from the many, many people that contact us, is that for some people it isn't sufficient. People are still struggling with bills. I mean, perhaps to sort of pick out two groups, a lot of people tell us that they've got health conditions or disabilities. They need to keep their house particularly warm. They've got high laundry bills, high costs of extra food and things. And people in those situations are kind of really, really worrying about. And the fact that they over the winter they were turning down the heating and they knew it wasn't doing any good for their health. They knew it was being affected. A woman whose husband had got dementia saying, you know, and various other conditions, he doesn't understand why we can't have the house warm enough. I suppose the other group that seems to be coming to us increasingly are people who have a bit of savings or private pensions and thought that they had done enough to have a comfortable retirement, not luxurious, but get by and maybe have a bit over for a treat, maybe even save for a holiday, and are saying now, all my income is going on my regular outgoings. We got a private pension, we can't get any extra help, and they're drawing on savings. So I think people worried about getting day to day. The weather's obviously getting warmer, so heating isn't such an issue, but they're still worried about the future. I read something from a woman in her 80s who said she's had to draw on her savings. She just about survived last winter, but she's really, really worried about next winter. So worrying about what's going to happen in the future as well.
Now, I don't know about you, but if I were in a government that had been in charge for 13 years and there were the statistics that were now the reality for the 13 years we've been in charge, I would be quite embarrassed. But anyway, this is a Tory government, so it'll be all part of the master plan as far as they're concerned. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below. And if you want to watch the full meeting, I've uploaded it. It'll be uploaded now. So if you're after this, you can watch it to your heart's content. There were another meeting after, but I didn't upload that. But I'll leave a link in the description box for you to watch that if you want to watch it. And if you felt this video give you something to think about, give it a like. I'd appreciate it. And if you want to see more meetings like this and you're new to my channel, this is what I do, so subscribe. So I shall leave the video here, and until the next time I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends.